This might sound crazy, but writing a greedy villain is one of the easiest things to get wrong. This is because you can end up with a bad guy who is inconsistent with their intelligence, underdeveloped as a motive, or fails to connect logically. However, the best villains like Mother Gothel, Commander Rourke, and even Chef Skinner show us that greed has layers. It's not just about gold or power, because there's more. So what's the right way to do it? To write a truly great greedy villain, you need to decide what they want, how they pursue it, what their greed means to the movie, and how their eventual downfall should look. However, to understand how all this truly works, we need to examine 4 types of greedy villains, starting with the materialist. This type of villain is all about cash, land, treasure, or any kind of rare, tangible resource they can sell to get rich. Clayton from Tarzan is the blueprint for this kind of greed. From his first scene, he's smiling too widely, shooting too often, and pretending to be more civilized than he is. He's hired as a guide, but even then, he's the one in charge. You can feel it in the way he talks to Jane and her father. Polite words with the tone of a man who believes everyone owes him something. Clayton is basically driven by entitlement. He believes the world, the jungle, and all its creatures were created for him, and men like him to conquer and exploit, just like he proudly remembers blasting away on his Zambezi safari. This isn't a complex motivation tied to childhood trauma, but a simple, dangerous belief that his superior civilization gives him the right to profit from anything. It's the type of greed that characterized the world during colonial times. However, when Clayton first arrives, he acts like he's just there to protect. But when Jane finds the gorillas, you see his control slip for the first time.
There were gorillas!
You saw the gorillas? Where, Jane? Where?
That's the real spark for his greed. From then on, we started seeing the real reason why he came to that jungle. But here's something you should note. Clayton's pursuit of his greed is a fantastic model for how to escalate villainy in a fast-paced story. He starts by trying to manipulate Tarzan to teach the ape man the word gorilla like he's training a parrot. When that fails, he just doubles down on the deception by using Jane's genuine affection for Tarzan to trick him into leading them to the other gorillas. However, when the ship's captain tells him he only has a short time left, Clayton drops the politeness and snaps at the porters, claiming his instincts were right and he should have set traps from the start. And that's it right there. The villain's greed should be so powerful that it overrides their sense of self-preservation and their duty to their employers. So it makes sense when Clayton betrays everyone, Jane, the professor, and especially Tarzan.
Why?
Why? For £300 sterling a head.
But that's not all. One other thing a materialist must do is affect the protagonist in a monumental way. We see clearly how devastating Clayton's impact on Tarzan is. It was a total betrayal that made Tarzan doubt his own identity and judgment.
I betrayed my family. Kerchak was right.
But Clayton's not alone here. His arc is almost a mirror image of Commander Rourke from Atlantis: The Lost Empire, showing how effective this archetype is even when the setting changes. Rourke, like Clayton, is a skilled mercenary leader disguised as a trusted guide. He's not after gorillas, but an even rarer, more valuable resource, the Atlantean crystal. Rourke leads an entire expedition solely to steal the power source and sell it. His greed is also purely financial and opportunistic. He pretends to care about discovery until the moment the prize is in sight. Then he executes a cold, military-style takeover, betraying every member of his crew who trusted him. Rourke and Clayton demonstrate that materialist greed is often about monopoly. They want to seize a resource so unique that they can control the market and dictate the price. Similarly, the ultimate end for both villains serves as the perfect lesson for writing the materialist. You see, they must be defeated by the very material they tried to exploit. Rourke, while trying to kill Milo, is cut by a shard of the crystal he coveted, turning him into a terrifying creature forever encased in the resource he wanted to monetize. While Clayton, in a desperate final act of violence, is strangled by the thick, living vines of the jungle he sought to master and destroy. Indeed, for a materialist villain, the object or setting they try to control is usually the thing that ends them. This makes their downfall the perfect natural consequence of their ruthless greed. But here's the interesting bit. Not every materialist has to hide their true intentions initially. Some of them are greedy right from the first time the director says action. If you're already thinking of Jack Horner, then you probably owe us a shout out because you're right.
All of the magic in the world for me, and no one else gets any.
Jack is a strange outlier that still fits perfectly here. Unlike the others, Jack doesn't bother pretending. He's not hiding greed behind charm or morality. He's greed in its purest, funniest, and most terrifying form. He wants everything: magical weapons, rare potions, mythical creatures. Anything that looks valuable ends up in his bottomless granny bag.
Is granny bag, little Jack?
It's not a granny bag, it is a magic nanny bag.
Jack Horner knows he's the problem and enjoys it, and his over-the-top nature still fits his story. Puss in Boots is a film about mortality and value, about what's worth wanting when life runs out. While Puss learns to cherish what's real, Jack hoards everything fake. His greed becomes a parody, a reminder that taking without meaning leads to more emptiness. Kinda like the same message Oogway tried to teach Kai.
Our two. When will you realize the more you take, the less you have?
Well, Kai never came to that realization, and the chi he sought to acquire also became the end of him, thus cementing the idea that materialists usually die the way they live. But the same cannot be said for this next type of greedy villain. They require a more unique way of writing that is unfortunately not explored enough, especially in recent times. This is Chef Skinner, and in the earliest scenes in Ratatouille, we already meet a chef who is a jerk. This is largely due to how he bullies and undermines Linguini. You could easily tell that he was likely the villain, or at least just an antagonist in the movie. But a greedy one? That answer would come later, during the most popular part of the movie, which ended up becoming an iconic meme. Chef Skinner's greed shows itself in a fit of panic when he discovers Linguini might be Gusteau's son. He soon hides the letter like it's a secret recipe, and that is all you need to know about him. He's the kind of man who would rather hide the truth than lose control. The kitchen, the restaurant, and the brand are all things he must possess. If he can't own them, then he is worthless. That's the character of this type of greedy villain, the control freak. Instead of just money or treasure, they hoard mostly authority, especially one they inherited. They need to run the show, give the orders, decide what's right, and erase anything that challenges their grip. Their hunger is usually for maintaining dominance. You can take away their wealth, but the second you take away their control, they fall apart. Skinner's every move comes from that. He inherited Gusteau's kitchen after the great chef's death, but it never felt like his. He's not loved, respected, or admired. His workers just obey him, but he doesn't care as long as he can retain his position as chef. This position also helps him with selling his frozen food line under the already established Gusteau name. Therefore, his greed comes wrapped in control. Control of the kitchen, the brand, the narrative. But there's more to this control. Skinner is also obsessed with keeping his authority because he wants to make as much money as he can from the frozen food line. He is okay using the reputable face of his former boss and doesn't care if the restaurant goes down the drain. Which is why when Linguini arrives and threatens all of that, we see how insecure the chef really is. We see how scared he is despite his cold exterior.
The deadline in the will expires in less than a month!
That's the thing with the control freak. They are most times ruled by fear or pride. And once that fear takes hold, Skinner's paranoia explodes. He spies on Linguini and tries to expose the rat that makes his dishes come alive. But there's another thing you need to take note of. Notice how his behavior escalates? The greed starts small with a hidden letter, then grows into an obsession. His every move screams desperation. He's no longer protecting the business, but the illusion that he's still the one in control. Psychologically, Skinner's greed makes perfect sense. He's a man who spent years living under Gusteau's shadow, never quite measuring up. When Gusteau dies, he inherits the throne, but not the respect. So he builds a new empire, one he can actually own, even if it means corrupting the original dream. Except the more he clings to that power, the smaller he becomes. And by the end of the story, Skinner's greed for control ended up making him irrelevant. But let's move from the kitchen to the palace, from Skinner to Pharaoh Ramses in The Prince of Egypt. The setting changes, but the wiring is the same. Ramses' greed is built on fear, too. Fear of weakness, fear of being seen as less than his father. From the start, his life revolves around the burden of legacy. He's raised to believe that pharaohs don't fail, and that the empire must never change.
I have to maintain the ancient traditions.
That is why when Moses challenges him to let the Hebrews go, Ramses hears only a threat to his authority. His greed is about control over a system that defines him. To Ramses, every brick of Egypt represents his power. If one slave walks free, that power cracks. So he doubles down. The more the plagues destroy his land, the tighter he holds his crown. He watches the Nile turn into blood, the livestock die, the sky darken, and still refuses to bend. Because for a control freak, surrender feels worse than death. And that's what makes Ramses' greed tragic instead of petty. He loves Moses in his own way. You can see it in his hesitation, the flicker of doubt in his eyes. But his fear of losing control outweighs his love. Every time he hardens his heart, he chooses power over peace. By the end, when his son dies, he's a man broken by his own refusal to yield. The greed that started as a defense of his kingdom becomes the thing that destroys it. In summary, control freaks want certainty. Their greed makes sense only when you show what they're afraid of losing. For Skinner, it's his position as chef, and for Ramses, legacy. But in both stories, that fear makes them human, even as it ruins them. Additionally, the control freak's greed is rooted in anxiety, rather than ambition. They can't stand the idea that the world might move on without them, and when it does, it feels like a personal attack. But while the materialist wants things, and the control freak wants authority, this third type of greedy villain is the most interesting because they feed on their greed with other people's greed. They are also one of the most fun villains to watch. These guys are called the status seekers. Their greed feeds on attention, validation, and the idea of being admired or feared by everyone around them. For them, success isn't real unless others are watching. This kind of greed is obviously about ego, and no villain shows it better than Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog. Facilier is a man so desperate to rise above his place that he quite literally bets his soul on it. Basically, his greed is the desperate need to shed his Shadow Man persona and be recognized as someone important. To do this, he organizes a social climbing maneuver by seeking out Prince Naveen, the entitled playboy, and his resentful butler, Lawrence. His ultimate goal, which he shares with his shadow demons, is to get the keys to the city. This means he wants to be welcomed into the society currently ruled by Big Daddy LaBouffe. Facilier pursues this status through manipulation and shortcuts. He exploits Naveen's playboy laziness and Lawrence's resentment, swapping the prince's identity with the butler's using the magical talisman. The plan is to get the fake prince to marry Charlotte and then inherit the massive LaBouffe fortune. But the money is secondary to the status. The marriage is his guaranteed social upgrade, giving him the power and wealth to pay his debt to the devil and become an instant respected elite in New Orleans. The deep psychological reason behind Facilier's greed is insecurity rooted in debt and failure. He's constantly looking over his shoulder because he owes his friends on the other side. He is a man who knows he's a fraud, so he constantly overcompensates with showmanship, singing, dancing, and dramatic flair to prove he's worth the gamble. This means the status seeker villain is often the most charismatic, as they must sell their fraud to everyone around them. They have to fake it till they make it, and they usually do this by also feeding on the greed of others.
It's the green you need, and when I look into your future, it's the green that I see.
Facilier's greed fits the story's theme perfectly because it's the direct opposite of the protagonist. Tiana's dream, which she inherited from her father, is built on hard work, sacrifice, and reality, whereas Facilier's dream is built on magic, lies, and shortcuts. His greed directly impacts Tiana by forcing her to lose her physical identity and distracting her from the true important relationships in her life. His final temptation of Tiana is the ultimate demonstration of his status seeker mindset. He transports her into an illusion of her finished restaurant, the dream she sacrificed everything for, and asks her to hand over the talisman. He points out her sacrifices and her father's failure to achieve the dream before he died. He tries to convince her that she must take the shortcut now, but Tiana refuses, realizing that her father had what he needed. He had love.
But he had what he needed. He had love.
Tiana's decision to choose love and reality over the shortcut separates her from the greedy Facilier. And when he breaks the talisman he needed to buy his way into status, it was over for the fake doctor. His friends on the other side soon came to take him away. And just like that, his greedy pursuit of status led him to be erased from the world he so desperately wanted to join. The other great status seeker is Ernesto de la Cruz from Coco. Ernesto's greed is so absolute that it led him to murder his musical partner, Hector, and steal his songs. He wanted exclusive credit for being the genius, the eternal adoration of the world. After he dies, his status greed continues, leading him to build a glittering monument to himself in the land of the dead. His ultimate fear is being forgotten. However, the moment his terrible secret is broadcast for all to see, his entire world shatters. He is punished with the status seeker's ultimate nightmare, forgetting. The moment the world realizes the truth, his fame is revoked, and he is disgraced. But where the status seeker needs to kill a friend or feed on the greed of others, these next type of greedy villains are the scariest kind. And this is exactly how to write their type of greed. The materialist wants cash, the control freak wants authority, and the status seeker wants applause. But the fourth and final type of greedy villain wants the most precious thing of all, time. These are the life drainers, and their goal is to extend their own existence or vitality, usually by stealing the life, freedom, or joy from others. Their greed is a tragic one, driven by the most human fear of all, the fear of death. We can see this primal greed in every single move made by Mother Gothel from Tangled. Mother Gothel's story begins with a golden flower that could heal wounds and stop aging. She finds it and keeps it secret, using it to stay young for hundreds of years. She doesn't care about what that flower could do for others. It's her secret, her weapon against time. But when the royal family takes it to save their dying queen, Gothel loses her source of power. That's when she kidnaps baby Rapunzel because the flower's magic now lives in the child's hair. From that moment on, her love for Rapunzel is nothing but an act. Every song, every smile, every fake bedtime story is another way to keep her control. The tower becomes her feeding ground. She isolates Rapunzel from the world so she'll never realize what's being stolen from her. Gothel's pursuit of this stolen youth is a masterclass in psychological abuse and control. She locks Rapunzel in a hidden tower for 18 years with lies and fear.
The outside world is a dangerous place filled with horrible, selfish people.
This is the Life Drainer's method of control. The villain wants to mentally crush the victim so they don't dare try to escape. Every time Rapunzel asks to leave, Gothel sings her song, making Rapunzel feel guilty for wanting freedom, thus ensuring the princess will willingly stay in her prison. The psychological why behind Gothel's behavior is a deep, toxic narcissism combined with an absolute fear of aging and irrelevance. She views Rapunzel as a beautiful tool, a personal fountain of youth, and every year the princess gets older, Gothel's fear escalates. The most heartbreaking impact of her greed is that she steals Rapunzel's family, her identity, and her entire childhood, replacing them with a toxic fake love. Gothel's life of shadows and lies is defeated only when Rapunzel realizes the truth and chooses freedom over her false mother. In the climax, when Eugene cuts Rapunzel's hair, Gothel ages rapidly before falling to her death. Her end is a direct and chilling consequence of her greed. She literally turns into nothing when the source of her stolen life is removed. Ultimately, when developing a villain like this, the key is to start from fear. What are they afraid to lose? Youth, relevance, time, or love? That's the spark that makes their greed believable. Gothel's fear of aging shows that the strongest villains are never just hungry, but desperate. Their greed is usually a survival instinct twisted into something ugly. And that's what makes the life-draining villain so memorable. They drain the life out of themselves, trying to hold on to what was never theirs to keep. But aside from Mother Gothel's evils, Tangled also gave us a great lesson on how to write chemistry when they paired Flynn with Rapunzel. So, in case you're wondering exactly how chemistry is written versus how it is not, then you should check out this video here.